Good. I think we're ready to go. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or good night to everyone. You're very welcome to what in fact is ICCBBA's first enterprise grant webinar or information session. Could we go to the next slide, please, Betty? So I'll just introduce myself. My name is Owen McGrath. I'm the Executive Director of ICCBBA. Next slide. And before I get the housekeeping, well, actually, no, I'll do housekeeping first. So one important thing to all of our audience, you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen an icon like a lightning bolt, perhaps, and underneath it says Live Stage. Make sure you click on that. It will open a little panel, and in there you need to use the Q&A tab. So that's the channel in which you can ask questions, either during the session or in the Q&A section of the program. So on the right-hand side, click on Live Stage and use the Q&A panel then for asking questions. Next slide, please. So what we want to do today is pretty much transmit all of the critical information concerning the grant, the enterprise grant for 2024. We'll start off with a little introduction to ICCBBA, the organization, and then to the grant itself. We're very happy to have here Dr. Smid from Sanquin in the Netherlands, but he's also one of the leaders of a project in West Africa, and that project was the grant recipient in 2023. We were very happy to support that, and today he's going to share their experience of the project and with the process itself. Then a little bit later, we'll go into detail on the step-by-step of the application process, including what kind of projects would be considered eligible and how we will evaluate them. And then we'll have, as I say, time for questions and to share some resources before closing the session today. I just want to welcome everybody. We're very happy with the number of attendees. I just want to highlight the number of countries that we've seen registered. 13 countries, including Belgium, Germany, Algeria, Spain, Ethiopia, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, UK, US, and South Africa. So with no further ado, let's go to the next slide, please. So ICCBBA, for those of you who have not heard of the organization, it's coming up, in fact, to its 30th anniversary. So established in the mid-90s or early 90s. And essentially, we are an information standards development organization, and specifically informatic standards around medical products of human origin. They're also called substances of human origin. And so it's a particularly specialized standards development organization. We also allocate or assign unique identification numbers to facilities, and this is a key element in traceability. That code, combined with other elements, makes each donation uniquely identifiable globally. And then it's important to stress that while ICCBBA is based in the United States, in Southern California, it is indeed an international or a global organization. There are approximately 3,500 facilities or organizations across 76 or 77 countries around the world who have registered, who are actively registered with ICCBBA, and to some extent are implementing or using the facility identification number and the data structures set up by the standard in their systems as well. ICCBBA was born out of a particular situation in blood, as I say, in the late 80s, early 90s, where there was a fear that unique identification was a challenge at best. And indeed, there was an actual situation in the first Gulf War where supplies of blood coming from many different providers were showing up with the same identifiers. And that creates a risk for the recipient, for the patient. So consequently, through the International Society for Blood Transfusion, a working group was set up to identify a way forward through standards, and from that working group, ICCBA was established. And its main mission is to develop and maintain a single global standard for terminology, definitions of these products, labeling, and then coding of these medical products of human origin. And secondly, as I mentioned, is the global allocation of unique identifiers to the facilities. So relatively recently, going back to around 2016, 2017, ICCBA established what has become known as the Enterprise Grant. And the Enterprise Grant probably was before my time, but I think it emerged from the observation of the difficulties that facilities in low resource settings had in being able to take on, adopt, or implement ISBT 128, which is the name of the standard. So it was born out of a desire to help those facilities take that step and progress towards more efficient and safer systems and processes for blood transfusion or cell collection and tissue collection, etc. What has changed is that in 2024, we're very happy to have been able to allocate a much greater sum from our own funds to the enterprise grant. And in fact, I think if we go to the next slide, I can develop that point a little bit further. I'll come back to it as the last bullet here. So the reason or the mission behind the grant remains the same. It's building technical capacity in transfusion or transplantation. And if we think of human milk, we neither transfuse nor transplant it, but I suppose we apply it or we administer it to newborns in terms of safety and efficiency. So technical capacity can be infrastructure, it can be know-how or training or education, it can be systems, etc. And much of it is particularly focused on being able to achieve reliable traceability of all of the substances or all of the products that are managed by these facilities. And in turn, this allows ICCBA to achieve our mission, which is to enhance patient safety through these standards. Now, the support for projects can be at local, it can be a regional, or it can be national level. And as I say, with a particular interest in projects that are based in low resource settings. We see it as a means to create and advance robust organizational frameworks, especially in cases where it allows or permits electronic systems to be established and to be maintained, which is an important aspect. We know that projects can be set up, but often sustainability is the challenge afterwards. And this is the point I was making just before, which is that we're really happy that we've been able to significantly boost the funds that we can allocate to the grant. So it's about 3 times more than in previous years. Previous years, it was a maximum of 30,000, the entire funding envelope. And we think that 2024 and hopefully going forward, that we can substantially offer more funding, which means that we should be able to reach more projects and allocate greater sums as well. Next slide, please. And just to give you an idea of previously funded projects, working backwards, and this is the project that you hear about today, funded in 2022. 2021 was Safe Blood for Africa, and I'm working with a blood center in Cameroon on a data management and labeling system. In 2020, there were 2 beneficiaries. One was a hospital in Indonesia, and the second one was also again in Cameroon. And then 2017 was the very first funded project was through Global Healing, and it was quality management in Haiti. And I think with that, next slide, I think we're going to go to our next speaker. And Chris, should I I can present Dr. Smid. So we're, as I say, very happy to have Dr. Martin Smid from the Netherlands with us today. So a former chair and member of the steering of, And Martin, you'll have to actually say exactly it's the International Coalition, but you'll have to remind me exactly what it is. And of course, you're well known across ISBT, working now with Sanquin Consulting and also director at the Academic Institute, IDIM. So I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you for the invitation. ICCBBA stands for International Coalition of Safe Plasma Proteins. Can I have the next slide? Yeah, the International Coalition of Safe Plasma Protein is an organization that brings together a number of global working organizations that have an interest in plasma products. And I will go into more detail later. We are very grateful for ICCBBA that they have provided us with a fund to co-fund a pilot project in Dakar. Next one. So what I would what I will try to do is to take you along the exploration journey that we took to approach and to find solutions to have more plasma products in a safe way available. So I hope to show you how it all started, give you some information about founding of the International Coalition of Safe Plasma Protein, show you some of the activities. Keep in mind that we are still developing activities, so what I tell today can change over time. I will show you what has been achieved in Dakar and some ideas about our future directions. Next one. Well, the collaborative WHO ISBT project on safe plasma proteins is a result of the identification that the lack of safe, quality assured plasma for fractionation results in a lack of access to plasma derived medicinal products, especially in LMIC. And that means that patients depending on those plasma proteins remain untreated and even undiagnosed. In 2009, WHO Achilles project was established to improve the global access, to increase the collection and processing of whole blood. In a way, this was not very successful. And in 2022, the Achilles project was revived under the WHO Action Framework to advance universal access to safe, effective and quality assured blood products 2020-2023. And in 2021, WHO published a guidance to increase supplies of PDMP and LMIC. Next slide, please. In order to translate the guidance into practical solutions, the ISBT Working Party Global Blood Safety organized a workshop. It was during the pandemic. We changed to online. It was a 3-day event. It was quite successful in the sense that we had 900 unique attendees and about 75% from low and medium income countries. The workshop was organized with participation of WHO, FIOS, a global organization representing blood donors, ISBT, representing producers of blood products and specialists in transfusion medicine, and 2 global patient organizations, one for immune deficiency patients, IPOPI, and one representing patients with inherited bleeding disorders, WFH. Further contributions were done by industry, a range of them, plasma fractionators, device manufacturers, and pathogen reduction technology providers. And also regulators, researchers, and other groups were attending. Next one. And well, in a publication about this workshop, the steps are identified, and in the table you can see them. So stepwise access to safe plasma protein products in resource-constrained countries where commercial concentrates are unavailable and unaffordable. You have a first step. When there is small volumes of plasma, that is less than 50,000 liters, you can think of plasma, plasma cryoprecipitate, and cryopool plasma. But keep in mind, you need additional safety measures to prevent any harm to patients. A second step that is more under discussion also within the ICCBBA is the mini pool production of cryoprecipitate and immunoglobulins and small pool scalable plasma fractionation. And here the discussion is about the safety measures and the risk for patients. So this is still debated. And then we have the larger volumes. Think about volumes of more than 50,000 liters, more than 100,000 donations. Then you can think of contract fractionation, and this is in a situation where there is a centralized or a centrally coordinated blood supply. Next one. Yeah, and here it is a bit in a different way. This is more, and it's a bit small, but you see in the figure, the pyramid top down. If we focus on the lower part, there is a small volume of plasma, relative small volume of plasma. There is no industrial option in the sense that you can do fractionation. And what can you do with the plasma and not to waste it? And then the step is you can do a local small scale production of plasma protein products. And as said, the volume is less than 50,000 liters. The rationale for that, if you can start to do, for example, pathogen reduced cryoprecipitate that contains factor VIII and fibrinogen in situations where patients are untreated. Think of hemophilia patient, think of postpartum hemorrhage, or they are treated with products that have no additional safety measures and that pose a risk to the patients. Next one. Well, the outcome of the workshop is to continue with the momentum and setting up an international coalition for safe plasma protein products in low and medium income countries that could steer pilot projects. And the first one we started was the project in the and it's Centre National Transfusion Sanguine, so it's the National Blood Transfusion Center in Dakar. It's a local center to produce cryo-PR. Then the second project is a project that is about to be started. We have the project protocol ready. That is a national blood system strengthening in Ethiopia. And then there is a number of other projects considered in LMIC. And the potential projects, one is Ethiopia, it's already mentioned. Indonesia, Vietnam, and Pakistan are other possible countries to do a project. and the WHO ISBT collaborative project on safe plasma proteins that was established in September 2022 enables hosting and coordination of the ICCBBA activities, including managing and disbursement of funds from ISBT. So the funds are governed by WHO ISBT collaboration. Next one. So the ICCBBA is an organization, is on this quite complex scheme, and that had to do with the legal limitations from WHO. It's very difficult to build a collaboration with WHO that is non-existing. So what actually happened is, and the red letters, the red lines on the top, that's the international coalition. The blue arrow, round arrow, goes to ISBT, that is hosting the international coalition, and ISBT has a collaboration as a non-government organization with WHO, and the activities for the ICCBBA are laid down in a MOU and a donor agreement. And then the ISBT Working Party Global Blood Safety is doing actually a lot of the work. With WHO, projects are selected in national blood centers, blood transfusion centers, national or local. And the most important is that for each project, we start to identify a focal point that needs to be a hero, and a person that is capable of making things happen. And then activities, and those are need-based, will be taken care of by expert teams. Next one. Well, the constitution of ICCBBA, here are the aims. I think it's very important to see the first line: as long as access to plasma-derived medicinal products or related biotechnical products is available for treatment of patients in LMIC, the ICCBBA aims at enhancing safety and quality, as well as availability for the treatment with plasma proteins, facilitating improvements in local blood establishments, and avoiding wastage of plasma. And the goals are to support introduction of new available production technologies, facilitate implementation and sustainability in LML and LMIC, and empower L and LMIC to progressively alleviate existing supply gaps and shortages of safe plasma protein products. Next one. So the concept of the model projects. Step 1 is a local preparation of cryo-PR where feasible at major blood establishment with appropriate infrastructure and ability to achieve compliance with good manufacturing practices. So think of the focal point, a hero that can make changes, that can make the difference locally. Second, there has to be a basic level of quality, and that was identified in the ongoing project in Dakar, Senegal. The national level promotion of contract plasma fractionation is the next ICCBBA priority, and a project in Ethiopia is in development, and the start is expected in May 2024. That's the next step. Well, the funding, the necessary budget fund on the need, and that is defined by the type of project. That's local preparation of PR in Dakar, and the number of interventions, the extent of activities, and the contributions of others. The pilot project in Dakar has a budget of about 100,000 US. That is for a project like this, it's not a big amount, but it takes into account that the organizations that make part of ICCBBA also contribute to the project. An assessment was done that was funded by the Luxembourg Hemophilia Association. We received the ICCBBA grant for capacity building. The ICCSPP member organizations are responsible for the remaining 20,000 for different activities, and VIPS, the provider of the medical devices, provides the devices free of charge and provides training. So that is about half of the money for this project. An umbrella grant from ISBT Foundation up to 90,000 euros can also be used to support educational activities of ICSPP projects over the 3-year period. Next one. So now we go to the pilot project of Dakar at the National Blood Transfusion Service in Dakar. We want to start and implement local preparation of pathogen-reduced cryoprecipitate. And it is a combined field test. So the first step is production of pathogen inactivated cryo during a period of 6 months, and this is the amount of factor VIII and fibrinogen that would be produced. And in the absence of CFCs in the country, patients with manifest severe bleeds will be treated, and those patients will be evaluated clinically. So these are the steps. Next one. So far, this is what we can say about progress. I think the picture shows very clearly. This picture was taken. This was the first visit in Dakar. 2 members of the steering committee visiting the blood bank, and we did it during the AFSPT meeting 2 years ago. And that means that we keep the cost as low as we can. In September 2022, an initial assessment was done by an expert from EDQM. In September, the quality system was assessed, and then in February 23, capacity building for regulatory authority was done. And one of the challenges we have is that it needs to be done in French, because that is the language in Senegal. In June 23, the FIPS abroad training was performed, and in December there was a GMP training of the people of the blood center in French. And then for 2024, we continue the strengthening of the regular capacity, the targeted FIPS assessment of the NBTC in Dakar is planned, delivery of FIPS systems, the start of production, informing of donors, medical staff, and commencement of the observational study will follow. Yes, the next one, maybe. No, then, yeah, I hope what I've shown is and you may have noticed in the presentation that it was more or less an explorative journey We didn't know what would be the outcome of the workshop. With the outcome of the workshop, we started the ICCBBA, and we developed the approach that led to the pilot in Dakar. And I have to say I'm quite proud of what we were able to achieve. And that is with the help of a lot of people, not the least contributions like the enterprise grant of ICCBA. And we were very grateful to have that because that really helped to take next steps. And I leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. The project sounds wonderful, and ICCBA is proud to support you guys. I look forward to hearing more throughout the year. Okay, so my name is Christina Salinas. I'm the Global Development Manager here at ICCBA. Today, I'll be focusing on mostly the application process and going into detail about eligibility, key dates, the review process, and grant distribution. Slide, please. Okay, so let's get started with eligibility and rules. So eligibility, the grant is open exclusively to providers of MPHO transfusion and transplantation services that are nonprofit entities, public institutions, and governmental agencies. At this time, for-profit organizations are not eligible. Funds must be utilized exclusively for non-commercial purposes aimed at enhancing the safety and efficiency provision of MPHO transfusion and transplantation services. Your focus areas, we're mainly looking at actions supporting enhanced traceability, and particularly are encouraged. Actions in resource limited settings are obviously a particular interest in ICCBA. The project duration of completion we're looking at is 12 months completion, although in the next couple of slides, I'll kind of elaborate if extensions are needed, but we're looking at, projects to be expected for completion at 12 months of receiving approval. The language for your application is mainly in English. And if you have any questions on that, please submit them in the chat. Compliance, we have a landing page, and there's a link here on this slide, which will be shared thereafter. There's an enterprise grant homepage that has all of our guidelines and compliance issues, most of which I'm going through over today, but you're welcome to download that. All the compliance and agreements are there. Next slide, please. Okay, so the process in itself. First, I want to go over a few key dates. The application opened January 1st. March 31st currently is our close date. So we're a little bit along the lines of 30 days or so. We're closing that at 5 p.m. local time. And then the recommendations from the selection committee will come around somewhere around April. We'll make the announcement in June. Typically, we are announcing that through social media, but we'll alert the applicant first and foremost using the email that is provided on the application. The submission info. So this is very important. These are the documentations that will need to be provided to us. So it will be form 093. Again, on the slide previous, there's a link there for the enterprise grant homepage where you can download this form. A copy of your registration if you are registered with ICCBA. If you are not, please don't worry about it. But if you are registered, we would like a copy of that registration. The grant budget template, which is also a downloadable template on our grant homepage. Your annual report is very important. And then any additional supporting documents on the application, which you may or may not have reviewed by now. There are sometimes shorter boxes, and you may have longer responses. So we encourage you to utilize another document and attach that in your submission. Just reference it to the application number that you're responding to, whichever is corresponding. And that's what we mean by any additional supporting documentation. And further, in regards to other information that you have on your project, which you think is important for our review panel to take a look at. Now, on the evaluation scale, there are possible 100 points. I want to say that, you know, the overall impact is reflective of this assessment. So we have the demonstration of need, which evaluates the extent to which the applicant demonstrates a clear and compelling need for the proposed project or initiatives within your organization. That's worth 15 points. The project description, it's worth 35 points, right? This is kind of your main chunk of your application. It's to assess the quality and comprehensiveness of the project or your initiative's description, your focus on your goals, your objectives, the implementation strategy is very important. The third one is the goals and the outcomes, which is 20 points. This is, you know, it evaluates the application's ability to clearly define what your measurable outcomes are of those objectives, and aligns and if it's stated and achievable, right? The fourth one is the budget alignment. It's 10 points, and this is going to be heavily weighted on what you submit in that grant budget template 1.0. And so just kind of examining how well the budget aligns with your project description, your intended goals, your objectives, sort of that realism on the outcome, especially in that 3-month marker, right? The fifth evaluation marker is team composition, and that's worth 10 points. That evaluates the qualification and expertise of each individual involved in your project. It assesses the capacity to, you know, the work, the diversity, the leadership, and the collaboration of your team. And you'll be able to add that information on both Form 093 and the budget template, which allows for you to elaborate a little bit more on your team and expectations. The last point is sustainability of the work, which is 10 points. This examines plans and strategies for the sustainability of your project, the impact beyond just the grant period in that 12-month period, including like fundraising and allocating partnerships and the potential impact, the positive influence of your project. And so totaling that would be a possible 100 points. Next slide, please. Okay, so the award information and reporting. So we will, as I mentioned, notify recipients of their awards via email, and the email that you noted on FM 093 version 4. Whoever you noted there will be notified if you were in fact selected for the grant disbursement. So as Owen mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, there's a maximum award of 50,000. But if you are not given the 50,000, let's say you're given up to 20,000, we'll be able to award that as a single payment. If anything is over 20,000, you'll see here on this slide how we've broken it down. 50,000 will be submitted or released upon agreement. 30,000 will be released upon receiving an interim report, and then 20,000 upon satisfactory project completion. So there are parts or phases to how we're going to distribute the award, and that coincides, if it's over 20,000 more or so, with the reporting of your project. So we want to make sure you're moving along well. You know, if at any time you're needing an extension, you would just need to write us and give us the reason so that we can evaluate and go from there. You know, termination of grant, any unused funds should be returned to it. But if there are unused funds and you feel like you need to use some of those funds, and maybe they're not particularly going to something that you had mentioned and maybe are reporting on, you can also write us as well so we can take a look at and evaluate that. Reporting typically for anyone who receives the award is going to be due probably interim or towards the end of the project. But as I mentioned, for anyone who's receiving over 20,000, we're going to need, written reports, the 90 days, the 30 days. And again, a lot of this is elaborated in the grant guidelines for you to return to us. But at any time, if you have any questions, you can definitely submit them here in the chat. We can answer them for you today, or you can submit them to us from now until the closing of the grant, and we'll definitely answer those right away for you. I'm going to pass it over now to Betty, who is going to take over the Q&A for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. And now I want to highlight that it is the time to submit your questions. So if you go into the Q&A live stage, you can enter any questions you have in the Q&A, or you can enter them in the chat as well. So with that being said, I'm going to also bring up the rest of the panel so that we can answer questions. While they're joining, I do want to highlight that we do have additional resources available on information for the Enterprise Grant. We have the Enterprise Grant homepage, and these links will be distributed to everyone after the event. So we have the Enterprise Grant blog, which includes a lot of important information, such as important dates and a background of the Enterprise Grant, the application itself, and a link to subscribe to our newsletter. And this is where we'll be sharing future information on not just the grant, but also future webinars and educational opportunities and important information to stay up to date with ICCBA and ISBT 128. Okay, welcome, panelists. So we're going to go ahead with the first question. And the first question I have is for Owen. Can you please provide examples of acceptable use cases for the grant funds? Are there any specific areas encouraged for the use of the grant funds?
Yeah, so I would refer you back to the slide I showed with previously funded projects, and they involved, first of all, infrastructure, I'll call it, and that includes for instance, computers, printers, or scanners that enable the facility to electronically manage. In this case, it was blood transfusion. But importantly as well, it can be training, upskilling, building up that know-how within the facility, because we've all seen projects where we have amazing equipment, but nobody knows how to use it or to maintain it. So the type of training formats could be using online resources. I'm thinking of the ISBT. They have terrific online learning platform. The funding could be used to sponsor somebody or a group to attend a conference. So for instance, we have the African Society for Blood Transfusion Conference in Kampala in Uganda next week. And it could be used, for instance, to register and to fund the travel for technicians or physicians or nurses to actually go to that and build up their knowledge. It could be to organize a specific event in that country or that region. It could be, for instance, it may be interesting to have a workshop in one location, and that you can invite people from similar facilities in the region to come and see how something is done and to get real hands-on experience. So training and upskilling and knowledge building is quite a wide concept, and it can include something as simple as travel grants, for instance. And then you might remember that the very first funded project by the Enterprise Grant was 2017 in Haiti, and I mentioned it was a quality system, and that can be indirectly related to traceability and ISBT 128, but nonetheless, it's creating that ecosystem, that quality ecosystem, which traceability is a key part of. So it can be used, again, for that training. It can be used for developing the documentation. It could be used for cultivating that quality culture that is so necessary in organizations that manage or that handle these medical products of human origin. So there's 3 examples: infrastructure, training, and quality systems.
Thank you, Owen. The next question I have is for Dr. Smid. What were some of the challenges faced during your project implementation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, if you start to do something that has not been done before, you will encounter challenges, and I'm very happy that we have a lot of experienced people involved who are really able to find solutions for most of them. If you look at the Dakar project, and when we had the project proposal ready, and even when we had it ready, we had to do some adaptations. I think the biggest issue is for a country in Africa that the blood system is still developing. So the government oversight, and you want to involve them. That is one of the issues. The second one is, well, I'm as the other persons in this meeting, most of us speak English, but then you need experts that have French language. So you have to search for them, and they are not in your phone, I can tell you. And the second one, and the third one is, and I tried to address that already in my presentation a bit, is that planning in the African environment is more challenging. We are used to time, and as some people in Africa remind us, they say, well, we have the time, you have the clock. So it may take more time to achieve something. And the other challenge, of course, is that most of us are not present in Senegal, so you have to do it from a distance. I think that is a few of the challenges, but in the end, you know, if you look at challenges, and that is my personal view on that, if you look at challenges, you sometimes encounter challenges and they cannot be solved. So my view is you should not spend too much time on that, but you should look for the solutions, and then you make steps further. And I think the group working in this project has more or less the same approach. Keep in mind, the talking about shortages of plasma for fractionation and PDMP is now for more than 30 years, and the approach to increase the amount of plasma didn't work. So this is an alternative approach, and I think it is a very sensible one, because when you improve the situation in the blood service, this can be an example for the other blood service in the same country, and then you elevate the quality level. And elevating the quality level means that you can take the next step and go to contract plasma fractionation. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you. The next question I have is for Owen. Is there a world region limitation for the enterprise grant? Therefore, meaning someone from a certain region won't be able to apply?
No, the answer is no. It's true that we have, I guess, a special interest in low resource settings, but that does not rule out applications by proposals from groups or organizations in what we'll call the rich world. So no is the short answer to that. Yeah. I just wanted to, if I can add a comment as well. Christina laid out very clearly the eligibility criteria and correctly emphasized that the grantee, so the organization receiving the grant, should be a not-for-profit or government body or public body. That doesn't stop the project having a partner or contributor who may be a company. So an example may be a software provider who's supplying the system to the grantee. The grant doesn't go directly to that provider; it's always channeled through the facility or the organization. But I just wanted to make it clear that having a commercial partner or supplier is permitted in this, but just not as the applicant.
Thank you, Owen. I have a question regarding the key dates and deadlines. Chris, what are the key dates and deadlines for the enterprise grant application cycle?
Sure. Yeah. As I mentioned prior, the main date you want to sort of have right now in your mind is March 31st. That is our deadline. That's when we are looking to close the applications, 5 p.m. your time. And then our selection committee will review in April, and then June, we will start to send out to the applicants who are awarded. So those dates are also can be found on the Enterprise Grant homepage as well.
Thank you. And in addition, Chris, what are the documents required to be submitted as part of the application?
Sure, yeah, the documents. So those are also on these slides as well that we'll share with you, but FM093 version 4, very important, that's our application. A copy of your registration, again, if you're not registered with ICCBA, no worries on that. You don't need to submit anything on that side. The template, the budget template 1.0, which is also available to download on the Enterprise homepage. And then your copy of your annual report is very important. And as I mentioned prior, any additional supporting documentation that you feel will be instrumental in our selection committee review. But also wanting to mention that the application, I think I mentioned this earlier, has smaller areas of reference for your information. So you may oftentimes have to include another document, just reference the number so that we know the corresponding question to align it to.
Thank you, Chris. We do have a question for Dr. Smid. In terms of quality management system, what type of issues did you find during your project implementation?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. It's an important one. Where you're looking at, I think if you consider the quality management system, what you want when you do the assessment, and I haven't done the assessment myself, and it's a bit awkward to tell what is not that good in Dakar and what is good. We could talk about that, but as I see it, working in a quality management system in what was called a rich country by E.ON. And I would say if you compare that with the low resource environment, what you miss is a number of technical tools to support your quality management system. At the same time, if you have a system that is developing and is done manually, then you can have an idea about the development, the stage of development of the system. And where we are looking at is a center where if you do the assessment, you have you can conclude that the basics of quality and the idea of quality and some level of continuous improvement is there. And that is the basis for capacity building, where you do additional training in order to have a level where you and that considers 2 steps. So what you see and what you can conclude from Dakar is that they have a quality system in place and it is developing. And some elements are missing, and what they really miss, I think, is to have it part of their daily operations in all instances. That is one. And the second one, they miss a number of technical tools to support them.
One thing, if I may, Betty, real quickly, that I didn't touch on for the application process is, thoroughness, completeness of the application are important. Those are highly likely to be considered. And also noting that we may need additional information between April and May. So just be aware that you may receive an email from us requesting additional info in regards to your application. And typically, we'd like to have that turned around fairly quickly. That is very important for the application review period.
Thank you, Chris. And we did have a question on the evaluation process and the criteria used to assess the grant application.
Yeah, so I touched pretty much in detail on the rubric scaling, but I think really honing in on the project description itself. It's worth 35 points to make sure it's very clear, making sure your objectives and your goals are there, sustainable wise, that your project is something that for the long haul makes sense and we'll be able to reference back and have our committee look at, the initiatives itself. I think those are really important. But if you really, really want to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the guidelines, if you will, for the evaluation process on the grant guide, you can actually view greater detail of how those will be looked at and scored. So I'd encourage you definitely to go to the Enterprise Grant homepage and pull up that guideline. I think it's page 8 that kind of goes through each point pretty clearly on what's required.
Okay, and how are grant disbursements made to the grant recipients?
Yeah, so typically they're done via wire, but again, it just depends on how much the grantee is awarded. So if you're awarded 20,000, let's just say you're going to receive that in a lump sum. If you're awarded anything thereafter, 30, 40, 25, that's going to be it's going to be awarded to you in a percentage. So 50% at the time of signing the grant agreement, 30% once we receive an interim report, and then 20% for the project finalization. But I want to add a note here in that if you need an extension or if there are some sort of issues with the project, communication is key with us. As long as we get it in writing and we're able to review it, we have no problem on that end. And then also noting that typically in the middle of the project, towards the end as well, we want to receive reporting on how you're doing anyways, whether you're at the 20,000 marker of award or thereof. It's important to keep us updated.
Thank you. And a final question before we wrap up for Dr. Smid. Where do you see ICCBBA and ICCBBA progressing in the next 10 years? I'm assuming they mean collaboratively.
Yeah, I think if you where we aim for is to have more plasma available for fractionation. That is and that is not our aim. Our aim is to have better treatment for patients, and to have more plasma available in a quality system. It's very important that what plasma came from which donor, So your traceability is important, and I think ICCBT 128 is the tool to make that work. So I think that is where we go and make steps to the future together.
Thank you so much. Okay, so with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and focus with give the stage to Owen and allow him to wrap up this session. Thank you so much to everyone who joined. We appreciate your time and attention.
So just very quickly, my last words to you would be to encourage you to participate. If you aren't in, you can't win. Completeness that Chris has already mentioned, it seriously makes a difference to your chances of being considered. Do contact us if you have any questions, as Chris has also said. Please subscribe to the newsletter or follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter just to keep abreast of any other announcements around it. I would wish anybody applying good luck, and I think I'll just finish by thanking first of all Dr. Smid for his time and for sharing that really, I guess, inspiring project that's happening and will continue into the future. And then certainly I'd like to thank my colleagues Chris and Betty for setting up today all of the logistics behind it, and for keeping us on track and on time today. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And with that concludes our webinar. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
And we will be presenting the recording to everyone who registered after the fact. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.